The galaxy had always been full of whispers, but now the whispers grew darker. Traitors spoke in fear. Spies sent broken messages. Somewhere beyond the stars, the great alien empires had reached an agreement. Humanity was not to be defeated. Humanity was to be erased. Their war councils believed Earth was too young, too loud, too reckless, and too dangerous to be left alive. They thought humans multiplied too fast, spread too far, and refused to kneel before greater powers. And so, in secret, fleets were gathered. Warships larger than mountains, bristling with weapons that could tear planets apart, were moved into position. The order was simple: erase Earth, erase humans, erase their story from history. But on Earth, no one yet knew the full scale of this storm. At first, it began as a strange signal. A listening satellite caught fragments of alien language, sharp and cold. A young officer in the command station leaned forward, trying to decode it. His face grew pale as the translation appeared. It was not a message of peace. It was a countdown. Somewhere in the void, an alien fleet was already on its way. He rushed to his superior. The words trembled on his lips. It's not an invasion. It's extermination. The officer's warning traveled fast, racing through the highest councils of Earth. Governments that normally argued could not argue now. Leaders sat in silence, listening to the reports. Alien fleets were on the move, and they were massive, so massive that Earth's small defenses seemed like toys in comparison. Panic spread through the chambers. Some leaders spoke of surrender, saying it was better to bend than to die. Others shouted of war, but their voices shook with fear. In that silence, a shadowed figure finally stood. An admiral, old yet sharp, with eyes that had seen too many battles. He spoke slowly, carefully. They believe they know humanity. They think we will break. They think we are weak. But they are wrong. They know our history of war, but they do not know what we have built in the dark. The council turned toward him, confused. What did he mean? The admiral said no more. His words were heavy, his silence heavier. He left the chamber, and only a handful of trusted officers followed. Deep beneath Earth, hidden from public eyes, there were shipyards that no civilian knew about. For decades, in secret, humanity had been building something. Not just ships for defense. Not just weapons for war. But nightmares, machines designed to scare even the strongest empires. The admiral's fleet had waited in shadows, hidden in black docks, sleeping giants that were never meant to be revealed unless Earth faced true extinction. And now, extinction had come. Still, the wider world did not know. The news of the alien threat spread among the people. Fear filled the cities. Rumors said entire colonies had already fallen silent. Families gathered together, wondering if this was the end. Soldiers in training camps looked up at the stars and wondered if they would live to see another sunrise. The whispers in the galaxy grew louder. Alien commanders laughed. To them, this war was not even war, it was cleansing. They remembered human ships from the past, fragile and weak, nothing compared to their grand fleets. They believed this time Earth would die screaming, and no one would come to save them. But in the darkness, humans were not screaming. They were waiting. They were sharpening. They were preparing. On one hidden base, far away from Earth's surface, a soldier stood before the steel body of a massive ship. He ran his hand across its hull, feeling the cold metal. To him, it was not a ship. It was a monster. When they come, he whispered, they'll see what humans are really made of. And as he spoke, the ship's lights flickered to life, as if it heard his promise. Across the galaxy, alien fleets moved closer, countless in number, glowing like storms in the black void. Their commanders smiled, believing victory was already written. But in the shadow of Earth, a fleet of death waited, silent, patient, hungry. And soon, the galaxy would learn that the war meant to end humans was about to awaken something far more terrifying. The leaders of Earth gathered in the Grand Council Hall, a place built for unity but filled with fear. The news had already shaken the world. Alien fleets were on the move, and their size was beyond imagination. Cities across Earth sat glued to their screens, waiting for answers, but no answers came. Inside the council, the air was heavy. Some leaders looked pale, others angry, but most looked broken. A voice rose first, trembling but firm. "We cannot fight them. Their fleets are larger than nations. To resist is to invite death." Murmurs filled the room. Some nodded quickly, eager to surrender. "If we bow, maybe they will spare our people," another added. But the moment those words were spoken, others slammed their fists on the table. "Spare us!" shouted a general, his face red. "You fools! Do you not hear the reports? This is not invasion. It is extermination. They want no humans left. Not slaves. Not survivors. Nothing." The hall erupted in chaos, voices clashing like storms. Some cried for surrender, others demanded war, while many simply sat in silence, lost in despair. Above them all, the giant screens showed cold images of alien fleets moving like rivers of fire through the void. No one had seen such power before. Even the strongest nations of Earth had nothing to compare. It felt hopeless. Then, slowly, the old admiral stood. His uniform was simple, his face lined with years of service, but when he spoke, the room fell quiet. "I have listened to fear. I have listened to surrender. And I have listened to anger. But none of these will save us." His eyes swept across the hall. "You say their fleets are mighty. You are right. You say they want us erased. You are right again. But you forget one thing. Humans have never survived because of strength. We survived because we do what others never expect." Silence deepened. The admiral's voice carried like iron. "For years, in secret, we built something they do not know about. Fleets that were never shown, weapons never tested in public. Machines born from desperation, hidden in black docks far from sight. Ships designed not just to fight, but to terrify." Some leaned forward, wide-eyed, not believing. Others whispered in doubt. "Impossible," one leader muttered. "Earth does not have resources for such weapons. You lie to give us hope." But the admiral only smiled coldly. "Do you think I came here with empty words? Look above you." The screens changed, flickering to images never seen before. Giant ships hidden in shadowed docks, black steel shining faintly, their massive weapons glowing as systems came alive. Gasps echoed through the hall. These were not the fragile ships the galaxy remembered. These were predators, designed in silence. The admiral continued, his voice like thunder. "We call them the Silent Fleet. They were built in hidden stations across the solar system. No one outside a chosen few knew. While the galaxy laughed at our weakness, we prepared for this very day." The room grew tense. Some leaders still looked doubtful, but many began to sit straighter, hope creeping back into their eyes. A council member whispered, "But, even with such ships, can we win against so many?" The admiral's stare hardened. "We do not need to win every battle. We need only to show the galaxy one thing, that humanity does not die quietly. That to touch Earth is to touch death itself." His words struck like fire. Generals nodded fiercely. Even politicians who once spoke of surrender felt their chests burn with something they thought was gone, pride. Yet one leader still trembled. "And if we fail?" he asked. The admiral leaned forward, his shadow stretching across the table. "Then we fail as humans always have. Fighting, screaming, biting until the last breath. But mark my words, if even one of our ships fires, the galaxy will never forget us." The council fell into silence. Outside, across the world, people did not know what was decided in that chamber. They only saw their leaders step out hours later, faces grim but steadier than before. Official messages were short, almost empty, telling the people to trust and prepare. But behind those words, the truth burned. The Silent Fleet was ready. In the secret shipyards, crews rushed to their stations. Pilots climbed into cockpits, hands trembling with both fear and excitement. Engineers whispered prayers as they activated engines that had never before seen light. And across the galaxy, alien fleets pushed closer, unaware of the storm waiting for them. The Admiral stood alone at the viewing window of a hidden base, watching as one of the massive ships awakened. Its lights burned through the darkness, its engines roared like beasts. The old man whispered to himself, "Let them come. They wanted our end. Instead, they will meet their beginning." Far from Earth's surface, hidden in the cold silence of space, the shadows of humanity's secret shipyards stretched across the void. They were built in places no scanner could easily reach, inside hollowed asteroids, behind gas giants, cloaked within deep black clouds where even starlight struggled to enter. For decades, these shipyards were nothing but whispers, guarded by silence and fear, their existence denied even by governments that funded them. Now, for the first time, their true purpose was revealed. The Silent Fleet. Ships that looked less like machines and more like predators, forged in steel and fire, waiting in the dark for the day humanity would face extinction. Workers and engineers moved across platforms with hurried steps, their eyes wide as the ships around them came alive. Lights flickered across massive hulls, weapons hummed, engines awakened with a deep growl that echoed through the docking bays. Some men and women had worked in these yards for years, never fully told what they were building. They welded, bolted, and assembled, following blueprints too large to understand. Now, as they stood on the decks watching the monsters rise, they finally understood the truth. These were not ships of defense. These were ships of vengeance. Each vessel carried weapons that even Earth's best scientists feared to test. Cannons powered by compressed suns. Torpedoes that split space itself. Shields woven with strange dark alloys. They were not made to survive battles. They were made to end them. The Admiral walked along the command bridge of the largest ship, his boots echoing against steel floors. The ship's name burned bright on its side, Retribution. It was the heart of the Silent Fleet, the first of its kind, and behind it waited others, Avenger, Black Spear, Iron Fist, and more, each one forged with one goal, to strike terror into those who thought humanity weak. Crew members saluted as he passed, their faces pale but determined. Many were young, too young for a war like this, yet their eyes shone with something deeper than fear, rage. They had heard the reports of alien fleets burning human colonies on the outer rim. They had seen images of families lost, cities turned to ash. For them, there was no choice but to fight. On the main deck, screens lit up with information as officers reported in. Engines at full capacity. Weapons armed. Shield systems stable. Crews ready for deployment. The Admiral nodded, his gaze steady, though deep inside he carried the weight of every life under his command. He had seen wars before, but nothing like this. This was not a battle for land, not for power, but for the very right to exist. Outside the viewports, the Silent Fleet stretched into darkness, massive silhouettes waiting for his command. For a moment, the Admiral allowed himself to feel the silence. These ships had waited for years, hidden in shadows, patient hunters. Now they were awake. The galaxy had no idea. Meanwhile, in the alien fleets pressing closer to Earth, commanders laughed at the thought of human resistance. To them, humans had only weak defense ships, old designs, fragile metal barely capable of surviving one direct hit. They planned to crush Earth in days, then erase the memory of humans forever. But they did not know of the shipyards. They did not know of the Retribution or the Avenger. They did not know of the Black Sun weapon sleeping inside the fleet's core. And so, while they laughed, humanity sharpened its claws. Deep inside one shipyard, a young pilot named Kara stood in front of her fighter craft, staring at its sleek black wings. She had dreamed of flying since she was a child, but she never thought her first flight would be against an alien empire that wanted her entire species dead. She placed her hand on the craft, whispering, "Let's show them what humans are." Around her, hundreds of pilots prepared, checking suits, sealing helmets, running tests. None spoke loudly, but their silence was filled with unshakable fire. Across the decks, soldiers loaded weapons, engineers secured systems, medics prepared for casualties they knew would come. The entire fleet moved with the same rhythm, a rhythm of survival. The admiral stood before his officers, raising his voice so all could hear. They think we are weak. They think we are prey. Today, we prove them wrong. Today, humanity rises from the shadows. When they see us, they will know fear. His words carried through the shipyards, carried through the comms, carried into the hearts of every crew member. Cheers erupted, fierce and raw, echoing through steel halls. Outside, engines burned brighter, as if the ships themselves hungered for war. Then came the order. Prepare the fleet. We launch at dawn. Across the galaxy, alien fleets continued their march, unaware of the storm hidden in darkness. But soon, when the silent fleet moved, the galaxy would never again laugh at humanity. For in the shadows of the shipyards, Earth had forged monsters, and those monsters were ready to hunt. The galaxy was never truly silent, but on that day it felt like the stars themselves held their breath. Alien fleets had already begun their attack on the outer human colonies, striking with fire and fury, leaving burning worlds in their path. On the edges of space, families screamed as alien warships rained destruction, and distress signals flooded through the void. On Earth, those signals were received by trembling hands. Screens showed cities turning to ash, space stations ripped apart, colonies going dark one by one. Humanity was watching its end in real time. Panic spread among civilians, fear grew like wildfire, but far away, deep in the blackness, the silent fleet was moving. The Retribution, massive and dark, led the way. Engines whispered as the ships slid through space like shadows, invisible to enemy scanners. Inside the bridge of the Retribution, the Admiral stood tall, watching every report that came in. Colony Delta has fallen. Omega Station lost. Refugees on Arcus destroyed. Each word was another blade stabbing into the heart of humanity, but his face did not break. His hands gripped the railing, steady and strong. He knew the time had come. Across from him, his officers looked nervous. One whispered, "Sir, the enemy fleet is too large. We should wait." The Admiral's eyes were steel. "If we wait, Earth will burn. We strike now." His voice carried through the fleet. Pilots sealed their helmets, soldiers strapped into seats, engineers steadied shaking hands. The order was given, prepare for the first strike. And then, the silent fleet burst from the shadows. To the alien commanders, it was shocking. One moment, their fleets were calm, moving with arrogance, laughing at the idea of resistance. The next moment, the darkness of space split open, and enormous ships appeared, black hulls gleaming like blades, weapons already burning. For a heartbeat, the aliens hesitated. These were not the fragile human ships they remembered. These were monsters. The Retribution fired first. A beam of pure energy, hotter than a star, tore across the void and struck the heart of the alien armada. Entire ships vanished in silence, ripped apart before they could even scream. In seconds, what was meant to be a trap for humans became a graveyard for aliens. Shock ran through the alien fleet. "Impossible!" shouted one commander. "Humans cannot build such weapons." But denial could not save them. More human ships opened fire, launching torpedoes that cut through shields like paper, unleashing storms of destruction. Alien warships broke apart, their firepower silenced in bursts of flame. Yet the battle was not one-sided. Alien guns roared back, filling space with deadly light. Human ships shook under impact, alarms blaring, steel bending. On the Retribution, officers shouted reports. Shields at 70%. Hull breach on Avenger. But still the fleet fought, refusing to retreat. Pilots dove into swarms of alien fighters, their black-winged crafts moving with deadly precision. Kara, the young pilot from the shipyard, gritted her teeth as she locked on to enemy targets. "For Earth!" she shouted, pressing the trigger. Her fighters screamed forward, unleashing missiles that destroyed 3 enemy interceptors in a single blaze. Her heart pounded, but her voice was steady. "We are not prey. We are the hunters now." Across the fleet, that same cry rose. Soldiers shouted, pilots roared, engineers refused to give up as fire consumed decks. The aliens began to break. Their unity cracked. They had expected an easy slaughter, but what they faced was rage, human rage sharpened into steel. Whole squadrons of aliens fled, but there was no safety. The silent fleet pursued without mercy. The admiral watched from his bridge as alien ships scattered, his jaw tight. "No survivors," he ordered coldly. "They wanted our extinction. Let them taste it instead." More weapons fired, cutting down retreating ships. The void was filled with wreckage, the light of burning vessels painting the darkness red. Then came the silence. The first strike was over. Where once a mighty alien armada had marched with confidence, now there was only debris drifting through space, silent testimonies to their arrogance. The humans stood, battered but alive. Inside the bridge of the Retribution, crew members stared at their admiral in awe. They had done the impossible. They had destroyed an alien fleet that was meant to crush them. But the admiral did not smile. He looked at the wreckage and whispered to himself, "This is only the beginning." Across the galaxy, news traveled fast. Survivors from the alien side carried stories of nightmare ships that appeared from shadows, of weapons beyond imagination, of humans who refused to die. Those whispers spread from one system to another, turning laughter into fear. The galaxy had always believed humanity was fragile, but now they began to see the truth. Humanity had claws, and they had just drawn blood. The galaxy had always spoken of humans as reckless and small, but after the first strike everything changed. Across distant stars, alien worlds buzzed with fear. The survivors of the destroyed armada spread their tales, their voices shaking as they described ships that should not exist, weapons that tore fleets apart in seconds, and a human fleet that came from the shadows like predators hunting prey. For the first time in centuries, the alien high councils fell into silence. Commanders who once mocked humans now argued in panic. "It cannot be true," one leader cried, slamming his fist on the table. "Humans were weak, they were nothing but pests." But another voice cut him off, trembling. "You did not see what I saw. They burned through our ships as if they were paper. One blast, one ship, and entire lines were gone." The council chamber filled with unease. They had gathered to celebrate humanity's extermination, but now their armies were in retreat, their fleets scattered. Fear spread not only among leaders but among ordinary citizens of alien worlds. Stories spread faster than light, of the Retribution, of the Avenger, of the human fleet that hunted without mercy. In markets and homes, in schools and stations, whispers grew, "The humans are not prey. They are the new predators." The empires that had always ruled with fear suddenly tasted their own medicine. Yet while fear shook the galaxy, on Earth there was no celebration. In the hidden command centers, the admiral listened to the reports. The victory was real, but it was costly. The Avenger limped back with heavy damage, hundreds of pilots were lost, entire crews never returned. Families across Earth wept for their sons and daughters, and though the first strike had shown strength, the people knew the war had only begun. The admiral stood before his officers, his eyes sharp. "The galaxy has now seen our strength. But they will not stop. They will come back, larger, angrier, and more dangerous. And if we are not ready, they will still burn Earth." His words echoed like iron, reminding everyone that one victory did not mean survival. Meanwhile, alien spies and scouts reported on the silent fleet, bringing fragments of images back to their leaders. Some were dismissed as lies, others were studied with growing dread. The ships did not match any known human design. They looked like nightmares, forged for one purpose: destruction. Even alien scientists whispered in fear, wondering how humans could build such weapons in so short a time. Questions spread. Who had helped them? Did another empire secretly back them? Or were humans simply more dangerous than anyone imagined? Paranoia filled the empires. Allies began to accuse one another. Old friendships between alien species broke apart, each suspecting betrayal. While they argued, humanity grew stronger. The silent fleet repaired, rearmed, and expanded. Engineers worked day and night, building more ships, more weapons, while the rest of Earth braced for the storm to return. Among the crews, stories of the first strike spread like fire. Young pilots who had doubted themselves now carried pride in their eyes. Soldiers whispered of the alien ships breaking apart, of how the galaxy finally feared humanity. Yet deep inside, they knew the cost, and they swore to fight harder. Kara, the pilot who had shouted for Earth, sat in her hangar staring at her fighter. She had returned alive, but many of her friends had not. Her hands trembled as she remembered the chaos of the battle, but her heart burned with new fire. She whispered softly, "I will fight again. For them. For us all." Her words echoed the feelings of thousands. Back in the alien council chambers, fear turned into desperation. Some leaders demanded to send even larger fleets, others whispered about negotiation, but the loudest voices cried for total annihilation. If we leave humans alive, they will rise. If we give them time, they will challenge us all. This is not war, this is survival. Either they end, or we end. And so, in secret, a new plan began. Massive fleets were ordered to gather, even larger than before, with the intent of crushing Earth in one final storm. But even as they prepared, doubt lingered in their hearts. Could they truly defeat a species that fought like cornered beasts, that built monsters in shadows, that struck with such fury? In the dark, whispers of fear never stopped. Traders avoided human space. Spies hesitated to enter. Entire colonies of aliens prayed that the war would end before it reached them. The galaxy had always looked at humans with arrogance, but now they looked with dread. And in the center of it all, the Admiral stood in silence, watching stars from the bridge of the Retribution. He knew the galaxy feared them now, but he also knew fear alone would not win the war. His fleet had tasted victory, but greater storms were coming. As he turned to his officers, his voice was calm but sharp. They wanted us gone. They wanted us forgotten. But now they fear us. And when the next battle comes, we will show them why humanity survives. Outside the viewport, the stars burned cold and endless, but within the silent fleet, hearts burned hotter than fire. The galaxy feared them, and that fear was only the beginning. The galaxy shook with fear, but inside the silent fleet the Admiral carried a burden no one else knew. He had revealed the fleet to the world, he had shown humanity's strength, and he had led them to their first victory, but deep in his heart he knew that victory had only bought time. The alien empires would not give up after one defeat, they would come back larger, stronger, and more determined. And when they came, even the silent fleet might not be enough. That was why the Admiral kept his secret close. Buried deep within the Retribution, hidden in layers of steel and locked away from even his officers, there was a weapon that had never been spoken of. It was not on any official record, not on any blueprint, not in any database. Only the Admiral and a handful of scientists knew of its existence. They called it the Black Sun. It was not a cannon or a missile. It was something far older, far darker, something born from experiments that even Earth's leaders had once banned. The Admiral had allowed it to be built anyway, hidden under false projects, buried in shadows, waiting for the day when humanity faced true extinction. That day was coming. On the bridge of the Retribution, officers reported progress. Repairs were nearly complete, pilots were training harder, weapons were being reloaded. The crews believed they were ready for the next battle, but the Admiral knew better. "We won a fight," he whispered to himself, "not the war." His second-in-command, a younger officer named Rylan, noticed his distant eyes. "Sir," Rylan said carefully, "our people are celebrating. They believe the silent fleet can do anything. Why do you still look troubled?" The Admiral's jaw tightened. He could not share the truth yet, but he also could not lie. "Because the galaxy has not yet shown its full strength. And when it does, our ships will bleed." Rylan frowned but said nothing more, sensing his commander's heavy thoughts. Later that night, alone in the darkened halls of the ship, the Admiral walked down to the lowest decks of the Retribution. Security doors opened one after another, each requiring his code, his handprint, his voice. Finally, He entered a chamber that glowed with dim, unnatural light. At its center pulsed a sphere of dark energy, locked inside a cage of metal and shielded by layers of force fields. It hummed softly, like a quiet heartbeat, but its presence made the air feel heavy, as if gravity itself bent around it. This was the Black Sun. The Admiral stood before it, staring with both awe and fear. The scientists who had created it had warned him many times. This weapon is not safe. It is not human. It is not even natural. To use it is to invite destruction. But the Admiral had ignored them. In war, safety meant nothing. Survival meant everything. He whispered to the sphere, as if it could hear him. I pray I never need you. But if the galaxy forces my hand, you will burn them all. Unknown to him, Kara, the young pilot, was walking nearby on her way back from the hangar. She noticed strange guards near the lower decks, guarding places that were supposed to be empty. Curiosity burned in her, but she did not dare approach. She only wondered what secrets the Admiral was hiding from even his own fleet. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, alien empires continued to argue and rage. Some demanded total war, others feared another defeat. But finally, a decision was made. They would gather a fleet larger than anything in history, combining ships from dozens of worlds, a force so massive that not even the Silent Fleet could stand against it. Spies reported back to the Admiral, and when he heard the numbers, even his heart went cold. Millions of soldiers. Tens of thousands of warships. A storm greater than anything humanity had ever faced. His officers waited for him to give orders, but he remained silent for a long time, staring at the stars through the viewport. Finally, he said, "We prepare. And if the time comes, we unleash the Black Sun." Ryland's head snapped up in shock. "Sir, the Black Sun is real?" The Admiral's eyes hardened. "It is real. And it is worse than you can imagine. Pray we never need to use it." But inside, he already knew the truth. The galaxy would force his hand. One day soon, the Silent Fleet alone would not be enough. And when that day came, the secret he carried would rise like a second star in the void, a dark sun that would either save humanity or end them all. The galaxy was not silent anymore. After the shocking defeat against humanity's Silent Fleet, the alien empires gathered in a fury. Meetings were held in giant halls filled with smoke and arguments, voices of dozens of species shouting, accusing, and demanding revenge. Some leaders wanted peace, fearing that humanity's strange technology hid darker secrets, but most burned with humiliation and rage. "We are the rulers of the stars," shouted a scaled warlord with burning red eyes. "And yet we were beaten by Earth, a world that should not even matter." Others hissed their agreement. The decision was made. They would gather every resource, every soldier, every ship that could fly. If one empire failed, then all would strike together. Their fleets would merge into one colossal storm, a weapon made of hatred, fear, and pride. The aliens named their plan Operation Silence, mocking humanity's Silent Fleet. Their goal was not to conquer Earth. It was to erase it completely. On the cold dark edge of the galaxy, shipyards worked day and night. Enormous warships, bigger than any humans had ever seen, slid from their docks. Each ship carried weapons strong enough to split moons and shields that could withstand suns. Armies marched endlessly, millions of soldiers drilled and prepared for war. The galaxy had never seen such unity among its races, but hatred made it possible. Spies whispered to commanders, "The humans must not know. The Silent Fleet must not be warned." Yet the aliens were not only building ships, they were preparing a trap. They had learned from their mistakes. Last time, they underestimated humanity. This time, they would lure the Silent Fleet into an ambush so massive that no human would return. On Earth, the Admiral was restless. His spies brought fragments of information, but nothing clear. He knew the aliens were preparing something, but the scale of it remained hidden. His officers believed they were ready, but the Admiral's instincts told him otherwise. Alone in his quarters, he whispered, "They are coming. Not in hundreds. Not in thousands. They will come like a tide. Kara, the young pilot, trained harder every day. She remembered her first battle, the fire, the chaos, the terror that had nearly taken her life. But she also remembered victory, the pride of proving the galaxy wrong. Her hands shook less now when she touched the controls of her fighter. She was ready for another fight, but she had no idea just how massive the next battle would be. Meanwhile, far away, the alien Council of War finished their plans. They chose the battlefield carefully. Not Earth, not the core of human space, but a system on the edge, where the silent fleet would be forced to respond. There, in the shadows of 3 suns, they would wait. 50,000 warships. Millions of soldiers. Weapons designed to crack planets. They would hide until the silent fleet arrived, then strike with everything they had. Among the alien leaders was one who hated humanity the most, a commander known as Zelther the Unbroken. He had lost his brother in the last battle, burned alive by human fire. He swore an oath that he would not rest until humanity was ash. Standing before the fleet, he roared, "This time we take no prisoners. This time we leave nothing behind but dust." His words echoed across comms, filling alien hearts with bloodlust. Back on Earth, the Admiral walked once more into the chamber of the Black Sun. The dark sphere pulsed silently, glowing with unnatural light. He stared at it with cold eyes. He still prayed he would never need it, but deep inside, he knew the aliens would not stop until forced into silence. His mind was heavy, his hands shaking, but he made his decision. The Black Sun would remain locked, for now. Days passed. Reports flowed in. Alien movements were being detected near the edge of human space. At first, they seemed like raids, scattered and weak. But the Admiral knew this was a lie. It was bait, a trick to lure the silent fleet. His officers argued, "We must respond quickly before the aliens burn our colonies." Rylan urged, "If we wait too long, people will die." The Admiral remained calm, his voice low. "If we rush without thinking, more will die. This is not a raid. This is a net." He was right. On the alien side, Zelther smiled as reports confirmed that human colonies screamed for help. The silent fleet would have no choice but to move. Everything was going according to plan. Kara prepared for launch, excitement and fear battling in her heart. She whispered to her ship, "We did it once. We'll do it again." But far away, 50,000 ships were waiting in silence, their engines quiet, their weapons armed, their hearts full of hate. The trap was set, the bait was ready, and the galaxy's largest storm was about to fall upon humanity. And somewhere deep inside the Retribution, the Black Sun pulsed, as if it already knew the time of its awakening was near. The silent fleet moved at last. Reports of burning colonies and desperate cries for help pushed them forward. Civilians begged for protection, their voices reaching every corner of Earth. The Admiral stood at the center of the command hall aboard the Retribution, his face carved with stone. He knew this was no ordinary attack, but the fleet had no choice. Human lives were at stake. "Set course for the Helios system," he ordered, his voice calm but heavy with warning. The fleet responded like a blade being drawn, hundreds of sleek ships cutting across the stars, their engines glowing with deadly fire. Kara sat in her fighter, her fingers tapping against the controls. She whispered to herself, "This is it. The big one." Around her, pilots checked weapons, engineers prayed, and soldiers prepared for what they thought was another battle like the ones before. But none of them could see the trap waiting for them in the Helios shadows. Out beyond the system's edge, the alien armada lay in silence, hidden behind the glare of 3 burning suns. 50,000 ships, bristling with weapons, waited with engines cold and comms muted. They were invisible to human scanners, cloaked by layers of interference and deception. Zelther the Unbroken stood on the bridge of his flagship, his eyes burning with hatred. "Let them come," he growled. "Let them march into their graves." His officers hissed in anticipation, claws and fangs clicking against metal decks. The humans would arrive soon, unaware that death surrounded them. Hours passed as the silent fleet entered the Helios system. At first, the admiral saw nothing but empty space and faint signals. Wreckage floated across the void, human colonies burned to ash, lifeless stations drifting like corpses. Kara gasped at the sight. They were too late, she whispered. But the admiral's eyes narrowed. Something was wrong. The destruction looked staged, too clean, too perfect. He felt the silence pressing against him like a weight. Then, the trap was sprung. The stars themselves seemed to shift as thousands of alien warships powered on at once, their engines lighting up like 1,000 suns. The human fleet was surrounded on all sides, trapped in a cage of steel and fire. Sirens screamed through the retribution as officers shouted, multiple enemy contacts. Tens of thousands. We're encircled. Fear shot through the fleet like lightning. Kara's heart slammed against her chest as she saw the endless wall of alien ships appearing on her radar. It was not a battle. It was slaughter waiting to happen. Zelther's voice thundered across alien comms. Now. Crush them all. The alien fleet surged forward, weapons blazing, filling space with rivers of plasma, missiles, and beams powerful enough to melt asteroids. The silent fleet fought back with everything they had. Human battleships unleashed their cannons, tearing through the first wave. Fighters darted like fireflies, dodging enemy fire and striking weak points. Kara screamed as she dove between two alien cruisers, firing missiles that split them apart in twin explosions. Yet for every alien ship destroyed, 10 more took its place. The admiral stood unmoving as chaos erupted around him. His officers shouted updates, losses, damage, collapsing formations. We are outnumbered 100 to 1, one of them cried. Still, the admiral's voice was calm. Hold the line. Make them bleed for every step. Across the battlefield, human ships fought with a fury the aliens had never seen. Outnumbered, outgunned, they refused to retreat. Alien commanders snarled in frustration as their forces met resistance far stronger than expected. But the numbers told the truth. One by one, human ships were destroyed, their wreckage drifting into the void. Kara's squadron was cut in half within minutes, her comms filled with screams and static. Tears stung her eyes, but she kept flying, her hands steady. She would not give the enemy the satisfaction of seeing fear. Stay with me, she shouted to the remaining pilots. Zelther watched from his flagship, his grin wide. They fight like demons, but demons can still die. He raised his clawed hand and gave the final command. Close the trap. End this fleet forever. Alien ships pushed tighter, pressing the humans into a shrinking circle. Plasma storms rained upon them, shredding their shields, burning through armor. The Retribution shuddered as enemy fire slammed into its hull. Sparks flew across the command hall, smoke filling the air. An officer shouted, "Admiral, our losses are beyond recovery. We cannot win this battle." The admiral's eyes burned with determination. "We will not retreat. If we fall fighting. But this is not the end." Deep within the Retribution, the black sun pulsed again, as if it had been waiting for this moment. The admiral felt its presence gnawing at his thoughts, whispering promises of power. His fists clenched. He had sworn never to use it unless humanity stood on the edge of extinction. And now, staring at the endless wall of enemies, with his fleet crumbling, he knew that edge had been reached. "Signal all ships," he commanded, his voice heavy with steel. "Prepare for the last stand." Kara heard the order and tightened her grip. She knew what those words meant. This was the fight where survival was no longer certain. Her fighter turned sharply, engines burning bright. "If this is it, then I'll make them remember me," she whispered, diving straight into the enemy horde. Across the battlefield, humans unleashed their fury one last time, fighting as if they carried the entire weight of Earth on their shoulders. The stars burned with fire, wreckage floated like ash, and the silent fleet struggled against impossible odds. And at the heart of the chaos, the black sun pulsed brighter, as though its dark heart was waiting to be unleashed upon the galaxy. The silent fleet was bleeding, shattered, and surrounded. The alien ambush had worked perfectly, cutting off their escape and tearing through their numbers. Explosions lit up the darkness of space, filling the void with fire and steel. Pilots screamed in comms, their voices cracking as their ships were destroyed one by one. Kara dove through a storm of plasma and missiles, barely avoiding death, her hands trembling but steady on the controls. The Retribution shuddered under a hail of alien fire, the bridge shaking as alarms screamed, red lights painting every wall. Officers shouted reports, chaos filling the room. Shields at 20%. Hull breaches in multiple sectors. We cannot hold them much longer. The Admiral's eyes narrowed, his jaw tight. Every instinct screamed retreat, but retreat was impossible. The fleet was surrounded, the trap closing tighter with every second. Deep in his chest, a decision burned hotter than fear. He had sworn never to use it, yet here, humanity stood on the edge of extinction. Slowly, he turned to the secure chamber where the black sun waited, its dark energy pulsing like a heartbeat, almost alive. He knew what he had to do. "Open the gates," he ordered, his voice calm but heavy. Security protocols clicked, layers of steel sliding aside, shields lowering, and finally, the chamber doors opened to reveal the sphere of darkness. Its black glow spread, filling the corridor with an unnatural light. Scientists and officers stepped back, fear written across their faces, yet none dared speak. The Admiral approached, placing his hands on the energy field. The sphere hummed, sensing his touch, responding to his will. "For Earth," he whispered, and the black sun seemed to pulse in agreement. Across the silent fleet, human ships readied their last defenses. Pilots knew the Admiral was about to make the impossible choice. They did not know exactly what would happen, only that it could change everything. Outside, alien warships closed the trap, their weapons raised to annihilate every human craft. Zelther the Unbroken smiled from his flagship, certain of victory. "This is the end for them," he roared. Then, the void itself seemed to twist. The black sun erupted, a dark pulse radiating across the fleet. At first, it was subtle, a shadow creeping along space, bending light, twisting reality. Then it became impossible to ignore. The pulse spread, and alien ships felt it first. Weapons faltered, shields cracked, engines exploded from within, systems overloaded without explanation. Hundreds of alien ships vanished in silence, their crews gone before they could react. Shock spread through the enemy ranks. "Impossible!" Zelther screamed. "Humans cannot wield such power." But it was true. The black sun was not just a weapon, it was a force beyond understanding. It fed on energy, bending physics itself, and humanity had finally unleashed it. On the bridges of human ships, officers watched as entire waves of enemy fleets were destroyed before they could strike. Kara's fighter shook violently, pulled by invisible forces, but she held steady, gripping the controls. "It's working," she shouted. Around her, pilots cried out as enemy ships collapsed in flames, missiles and beams useless against the overwhelming darkness spreading from the black sun. The Admiral remained calm, eyes fixed on the sphere. He knew the power he wielded could consume his own fleet if misused, but he had no choice. Humanity's survival depended on it. Slowly, the pulse expanded further, engulfing the alien armada completely. Shields melted, weapons overloaded, engines ripped apart from within. Screams echoed in comms before silence took over. In moments, the great ambush was gone, nothing left but debris drifting in the void. Zelther's flagship was torn apart, his screams lost in the darkness. Across the galaxy, aliens could not believe the sight. Humans had survived the impossible. They had turned certain death into victory, wielding a power that no one had imagined. Back on the Retribution, the Admiral lowered his hands, sweat running down his face, chest heaving. The black sun pulsed once more, then calmed, its energy returning to the chamber. He had done it. Humanity had survived. Ships were damaged, lives were lost, but the fleet had survived against impossible odds. Kara's voice came over the comms, trembling with disbelief. "Sir, it's over. We won." The Admiral nodded, though his face was pale. This is only the beginning. The galaxy now knows what we are capable of. They will fear us, but they will also come again. We must prepare. Silence settled over the bridge. Humans stared out at the void, at the wreckage of the enemy, at the stars they had fought to protect. And deep in the chamber, the black sun pulsed gently, as if resting after feeding, waiting for the next time it would be called upon. Humanity had survived. The galaxy would never forget the day the black sun awakened. The galaxy had never been the same again. The destruction of the alien armada by the black sun had sent shockwaves through every star system. News traveled faster than light, whispers spreading from one world to another. Humans were not weak. Humans were not prey. Humans had weapons and courage beyond imagination, and they would fight to survive no matter the odds. On Earth, celebrations were muted but heartfelt. People wept for those who had been lost in the battles, for sons, daughters, brothers, and sisters who had given their lives to protect their home. Cities that had once feared extinction now stood tall, their citizens filled with pride and determination. The silent fleet returned to its hidden shipyards, battered but alive. Engineers worked tirelessly to repair the ships, to build new ones, to prepare for the inevitable return of the alien empires. Yet even in victory, there was no false hope. The admiral walked across the decks of the Retribution, his eyes scanning the horizon. Stars stretched endlessly, but each one held a possible threat. He had seen what the galaxy was capable of, and he knew that this was only the beginning. "We have won today," he said quietly to his officers, "but the war is not over. They will come back, larger, stronger, angrier. We must be ready." Kara stood nearby, her fighter freshly repaired and ready. She had survived the impossible, faced death countless times, and seen the black sun awaken. Her hands rested on the controls as she looked out into space. "Sir," she said softly, "we fought them once and survived. We can do it again." The admiral nodded, placing a firm hand on her shoulder. "That is why we fight, Kara. Humanity never gives up. We endure. We adapt. And when the enemy thinks they have won, we strike harder." Across the galaxy, alien worlds reacted to the news of the black sun. Fear replaced arrogance, respect replaced disdain. Leaders argued and debated, some calling for peace, others vowing revenge. But the knowledge of humanity's power had changed everything. No longer could aliens attack without considering the consequences. No longer could they underestimate humans. Humanity had risen from the shadows, and the galaxy had to accept that. Deep in the black sun chamber, the sphere pulsed gently, its dark energy calm but alive. The admiral watched it, knowing that it was a weapon of ultimate power, a tool of survival, but also a force that demanded respect. "We will not use it lightly," he whispered, "but it will protect us when we have no choice." Pilots, soldiers, and engineers moved through the fleet with renewed determination. Each life saved, each ship repaired, each weapon readied was a statement to the galaxy. Humanity would endure. Training intensified, strategies were rewritten, and defenses strengthened. Even in victory, the fleet knew that complacency was deadly. Kara joined her squadron, preparing for patrols in the newly secured systems. She remembered the screams, the chaos, the loss of friends. But she also remembered the fire of victory, the knowledge that humans could survive against impossible odds. "We fight for them," she whispered, thinking of the fallen. "We fight for Earth." On the bridges of the fleet, officers reported new intelligence. Some alien factions were retreating, others were regrouping. Spies confirmed that fear was spreading across their worlds. Rumors of the Black Sun had reached even the most distant corners, and the galaxy whispered in awe. Zelther the Unbroken survived, though his flagship had been destroyed. He retreated into hidden systems, plotting revenge, but even he knew that the humans had changed the balance of power. Humanity would not be an easy target again. Across the silent fleet, the admiral convened a council. He spoke of patience, vigilance, and preparation. "We are no longer just defending Earth," he said. "We are shaping the galaxy's future. Let them fear us, but let them also know that humans are fair, honorable, and strong. We fight not for conquest, but for survival and peace. Engineers smiled as they saw ships being rebuilt faster than ever. Soldiers trained with new determination. Pilots flew missions not only for protection but to explore the stars, to remind humanity that the universe belonged to those brave enough to claim it. Kara led a formation of fighters on a patrol, flying past the debris of the defeated alien armada. The stars stretched endlessly before her, each one a reminder of battles fought and victories won. She felt pride, fear, hope, and responsibility all at once. "We survived," she whispered. "And we will continue to survive." The Admiral stood once more on the bridge of the Retribution, looking out at the stars. The galaxy was vast, full of dangers yet to come, but humanity had shown its strength. The silent fleet, though battered, glowed like a dark constellation, a symbol of endurance and determination. He knew challenges awaited, but he also knew that the human spirit could not be broken. The black sun pulsed quietly in the depths of the ship, a reminder that even in darkness, there could be light, or in this case, power that would protect humanity. Across Earth, celebrations continued. Survivors embraced, children cheered, families cried tears of relief. Humanity had faced death and won, and now a new dawn had arrived. The galaxy had learned to fear humans, but more importantly, to respect them. For in the darkness of space, amid impossible odds, humans had risen, fought, and survived. And as the stars shone down on Earth and the silent fleet, one truth became clear: humanity would never be defeated. The galaxy had a new dawn, and it belonged to the brave, the strong, the survivors. Humanity's story was just beginning.